All right, what is going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. We've got a lot of interesting stories to talk about in this video. I want to do kind of a recap of the Tampa Pro that happened this weekend, but first, I want to start this Nick Strength and Power video with a power story. Jamal Browner going a little bit viral in the powerlifting world this past weekend with his recent deadlift of 1,050 pounds, 476.28 kgs. He's only 25 years old. And I believe that is the closest that anybody has came so far to the 501 kg deadlift record. Now, I know that recently Ivan Makarov, he did 470. I know that recently Pimen Maharaporer, the Iranian powerlifter, he did 476. I don't know if he did 476.2 or not, but Jamal, at 25 years old and being one of the young up-and-coming guys, has one of the more impressive lifts because he did it without a suit. Now, he did use straps like the other guys did, but he was not wearing a super suit for the deadlift. This was not any type of equipped lift. And I believe Pimen, in his attempt, he was wearing a super suit when he did his 476. So Jamal showing incredible promise and incredible strength. And right now, I think that puts him second in line as far as who's closest to the 501 kg deadlift title. And does that put him in the conversation as someone that could be gunning for that record? Now, when I've talked about Ivan Makarov and people challenging the deadlift world record, specifically, it's supposedly going to be in September at the World Deadlift Championships, which is going to be in the Manchester Arena. This is going to be a Giants live event. So, to be honest, I'm not really sure if there's like an invitation system for that or a qualification system for that, but I don't know what would qualify you more to compete at that World Deadlift Championship than Jamal's recent deadlift. I think he's got a serious shot at the title here. So, shout out to Jamal. Now, next up in the news, let's talk about the Tampa Pro a little bit. There's some stuff I want to talk about. Number one, obviously, Hunter Labrada wins his pro debut this weekend at the Tampa Pro. A super impressive victory on Hunter's part. He's actually following in the footsteps of his former Labrada Nutrition teammate, Sergio Oliva Jr., in becoming a successful second-generation IFBB pro. Now, even though his father, Lee Labrada, didn't win a Mr. Olympia title, he was certainly a top Olympia contender during his time. Now Hunter, just like Sergio, proving not only can he earn a pro card, he can be a dangerous professional bodybuilder, just like Sergio has proven he was at this past year's Arnold Classic. So congratulations to Hunter, but also worthy of discussing here is second place runner-up Iain Valliere. So Iain Valliere is an interesting one. A lot of people were expecting Iain to win here. There was a lot of pressure on Iain Valliere to do very well. And specifically, I saw that in my comment section. When I was predicting that Hunter was going to win, a lot of Iain's fans said, no, Iain's going to blow him away. But I stuck with my Hunter prediction, and that proved to be a safe bet. But Iain, it was interesting. After prejudging, it appeared that he deleted his Instagram for a little while. A lot of people messaged me saying Iain's Instagram disappeared, and I checked, and it was gone for me too. So I figured most likely he deleted it because he still had to go back on stage for the night show, and maybe it was stressing him out, the pressure of maybe some of the comments of people criticizing his physique because he was a little bit off, significantly off at prejudging, and arguably he missed the mark there. So I figured maybe he just didn't want to read anything negative and go into the night show focused. And he did. It's worth mentioning, and I said this in my last video, that Iain was significantly improved at the night show. He looked a lot better, and I think the primary factor for that was the color of the tan that he had. I think the stage lights there were very bright because I saw a lot of competitors in a lot of the different categories seem washed out when they had a lighter color. And I think Iain got washed out in the prejudging, and his color was a little bit too light in addition to being off. I don't want to make any mistake about it. I do think he was off, but I think the color certainly didn't help. So he fixed the color for the night show, looked a lot better at the night show, and he looked like he tightened up a bit at the night show too, making it a much closer battle between him and Hunter at the night show. And it probably would have been much closer if he had looked like that at prejudging. Now, that being said, after the night show and after the final awards, Iain put out a statement on his Instagram, which he apparently reactivated. So essentially, I'll read you guys part of it and kind of sum up what I think about it. He says, "It is really hard to put into words the whirlwind of emotions that I've felt today. After this morning's prejudging, I felt lower than low. I felt shame, embarrassment, and that I let myself, my coach, my family, and my fans and supporters down. I, as well as all of you, expected to see a much better version of Iain, one that I very well know I'm capable of, and for that, I am truly sorry. I came back tonight better. He did. I agree with that 100%. My tan was improved. It certainly was. Improved fullness, which let my conditioning shine a little better. I do think he looked more conditioned at the night show, so I agree with that as well. But I still wasn't near what I know I'm capable of or what was needed to beat an outstanding debut from Hunter Labrada. I agree with that as well. I think Hunter would have won no matter what. I think even if his color was fixed in the morning, I think Hunter still would have won the show. So I don't think the tan was the only factor, which I've seen a lot of people say. I'll be completely transparent in that I absolutely let the pressure of this show, the hype, the expectations, the eyes get to me, which did certainly impact my look to some degree, I'm sure, and also my demeanor on stage during prejudging. Now, I had a lot of people comment this in the comment section when I did my recap of the prejudging in the night show, saying that Iain's face, it looked like he wasn't happy to be there, or it looked like he was sad. Not just during the prejudging, but I also noticed at the night show and at the awards. Not to say that I think he looked like he was, unhappy with his placing. I think it looked like he was disappointed with himself and that he knew he had missed the mark. That's what I thought when I saw him at prejudging, and he acknowledges this in his caption, which I think is good that he did acknowledge that, because it was something that I thought was very noticeable, and I think it certainly was distracting almost from his posing routine, and even in the comparisons, his face, he just didn't really look enthusiastic to be there. I'm glad he explains the reasoning behind it here. So he goes on to say, which I'm sure was very apparent to anyone who was watching in person or on the pay-per-view, and trust me, it was, because that was most of the comments on the videos that I made so far. I don't know what's next for me. My goal has always been to get to the Olympia, but I certainly need to figure some things out, especially intrinsically, because I think that this is an endeavor I can take on successfully. But here is a few shots I liked from tonight's final, where I ended up second for anyone who didn't watch the show. And again, congrats to Hunter Labrada on a well-deserved win, and thank you to Patrick Tor, for ongoing incredible help and support. I couldn't ask for a better coach and supporter in my corner. We learn, we grow. Also, for those who are going to say, I talked a big game and didn't show up. Yes, you're right. I didn't show up near 100%. But my off, and he puts off in quotations, is still top 4 in every pro show I've done in the last 4 years. So call me what you want, but I'm no slouch bodybuilder. And I'll never go into a show with that attitude in interviews or on social media. The day I do that is the day that I retire. So I think this is an excellent post from Iain Valliere, because it shows the other side of a competitive bodybuilder, maybe the more insecure side of a competitive bodybuilder. They project confidence. They look, superhuman walking around. But there's a real person in there. They've got real feelings, real emotions, real anxiety, and real fears. And they feel, like he says, real shame and real embarrassment when they don't perform to the extent that they felt they should have, or to the extent that they feel like people were expecting them to. And to be totally honest, I haven't seen any of the interviews that he's done leading up to the Tampa Pro. I don't really watch interviews because I don't really enjoy them very much. So if he had a cocky attitude or something, if that's what he's referencing in this last paragraph, I'm not entirely sure. But every bodybuilder should be cocky. It's a one-man sport. You should feel like you're the best bodybuilder going into any show and like you're the guy that's going to win. So if he was acting that way, I don't blame him. And I also agree with him that he's not a slouch bodybuilder. I don't think anybody is saying that. I think everybody predicted that he would be gunning for the top spot and that he would be in the top 2 way prior to the show, because he was one of the best bodybuilders in that lineup that we knew was competing. I didn't predict Hunter to win because I think Iain is a slouch bodybuilder. I predicted Hunter to win because I thought he looked phenomenal, and I still think he looked phenomenal. And the physique that I was seeing Hunter post, I felt like was superior to Iain, so that's why I predicted him that way. I never thought that Iain was a slouch bodybuilder, and he's certainly not. And to be honest, I think if he was a little bit tighter and had his tan fixed in the morning, he would have made it a lot more challenging of a victory for Hunter. It wouldn't have been an easy win for Hunter. What I would like to see, and I know Iain is discouraged right now, but I would like to see him finish out the rest of this bodybuilding season and just see what he can do. You've got the New York Pro coming up. You've got the Cali Pro coming up. You've got the Boston Pro coming up. And I think there's a handful of other shows sprinkled in there prior to the Olympia in December. And I think it's still possible for him to get to that Olympia stage if he can just find it within himself to continue competing despite the discouraging placing that he got here in Tampa. So in my opinion, I think Iain's going to pull it together, and I think he's going to place very well at one of these upcoming shows. We're probably going to see a battle between him and somebody like the next story that we're going to talk about here, Regan Grimes, who is 10 weeks out from the Boston Pro, I believe is the show that he's doing. Another show that I think that would be a good show for Iain, and that would be a good battle between the two of them. They're both Canadian. So Regan Grimes posted this full posing video physique update, probably inspired by seeing all the competitors at the Tampa Pro, probably getting the urge to scratch that competition itch at the Boston Pro and show off how he's been looking so far. I think Regan looks phenomenal here. And I've just got to say, I'm extremely excited that we're talking about bodybuilders that are 10 weeks out from a show and that we're talking about the results of a pro bodybuilding show. This year has sucked so far. Bodybuilding, for lack of a better word, in 2020 has been canceled. Up until this point, after the Arnold Classic Ohio, everything was just gone and shut down, which is extremely frustrating for me as a bodybuilding fan, but even more so as a bodybuilding reporter. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have been feeling the same way. I'm sure a lot of you guys are excited to see bodybuilding back, and that the fact that we're talking about contest results again, I think is cool. Now, next up in the news, an update from Hadi Choopan coming from his coach, Hani Rambod. Now, Hani goes on to say in this caption, Hadi Choopan is doing a shoulder press with 295 pounds, no spot, no lift off, no cheerleaders. If you want to build a dominant physique, you'll have to lift the heavy stuff from time to time. This not only will help your physique grow into the next level of yourself, but it will also help your mindset going into any prep. As my good friend, 8-time Mr. Olympia, the King, Ronnie Coleman once said, everyone wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift no heavy-ass weight. So Hadi Choopan is killing it, and I think Hani Rambod kind of alluded to the fact that Hadi is preparing to prep for a show. Hopefully, that is going to be the Olympia in December. Hopefully, Hadi preps for it and tries to compete there. We don't know if he's going to be able to or not with the travel restrictions, but hopefully he is able to get there and compete because he was top 3, obviously, at 2019's Mr. Olympia. So that is going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. And if you did enjoy the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, like the video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed already, because it's time again for bodybuilding competitions, and that means it's time again for bodybuilding coverage, and I've got you guys covered. So make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not already. And as always, Nick Strength and Power, signing out.